Hello, my friends. Today, the situation remains tense along the entire front line, with the Russian forces continuing their relentless pressure. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians are carrying out non-stop assaults. They have broken through their defense and reached open spaces, now aiming to maintain their momentum and prevent the Ukrainian forces from establishing new defensive lines. As seen, the Russians are attacking head-on, throwing all their forces into the offensive, forcing the Ukrainian forces to hold the line in this intense mode. Despite the overwhelming numbers of Russian troops, they are managing to advance further. Today, the Russians are attempting to fully capture Ivanivka and Zhelanne. According to the latest Ukrainian forces statements, the Russians are already in Zhelanne. This isn't surprising, as the settlement is nearly encircled and assaults entering the settlement were expected. Additionally, the Russians are trying to advance towards Selidove, breaking through near Kharkivka and towards the village of Kalinove. Battles for Vozdvizhenka and the area around Novosergiivka continue, but here the Ukrainian forces are managing to hold their grounds with no changes in the front line over the past day. Meanwhile, the Russians continue striking the rear. Following recent attacks on Pokrovsk, it was reported that one person was killed and two were injured. In the Toretsk direction, maximum activity continues as well. The Russians are trying to break through to Toretsk with assaults on Pivnichne and New York. The distance from the current front line to the city outskirts is approximately 1.5 kilometers, with battles already occurring within 1 kilometer and 200 meters. At the same time, shelling remains at its highest intensity. In the Chasiv Yar direction, the situation is somewhat more stable for unclear reasons. The Russians are sending fewer reserves here than to the Pokrovsk and Toretsk directions. Additionally, after advancing from Kurdyumivka to Bila Hora, they have had no new successes, and the battles for Klishchiivka and Ivanivske continue. The front line there remains unchanged. They might think that cutting off the Pokrovsk-Kostiantynivka road will make it easier for them to capture Chasiv Yar, but they are mistaken. Ukrainian forces soldiers have long stated that no one travels this road because it's under fire, and there are many other routes being used today. Therefore, cutting this road will not bring significant changes for them. In the Siversk direction, activity remains high. Battles are ongoing in the areas of Verkhnokamianske, Spirne, Ivano-Darivka, and also Pereizne. According to Ukrainian forces statements, the Russians have managed to make some progress in Pereizne, and the battles continue. So far, there have been no major breakthroughs or successes here, as seen in the Pokrovsk direction. However, due to such high activity along the front line, the Ukrainian forces have to allocate resources here, which could have been used in the Pokrovsk and Toretsk directions. In the Kreminna direction, the Russians are currently at a standstill and still cannot capture Terny and Torske. They continue offensive actions and shelling, but there are no changes to the front line here. In the Svatove direction, everything remains stable as well. The battles for Stelmakhivka continue, and further south, they are attempting to capture the village of Makiivka. However, the battle line remains unchanged here as well. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians continue shelling and are amassing reserves for new attacks. They have had significant successes here, managing to extend the front line considerably and aim to capture Kupiansk. Therefore, major battles are expected here soon. In the Kharkiv direction, after regrouping, assaults on Hlyboke have resumed. However, there are no changes to the front line here yet. The battles for Vovchansk and the village of Tyche continue. The situation here is deteriorating, but the Russians' movement is minimal. They have to fight for every meter of land as the Ukrainian forces strive to keep the front line as stable as possible. In the Kurakhove direction, the Russians continue to assault the outskirts of Krasnohorivka but cannot fully clear the city. Our units are fighting for every meter, and there have been no changes to the front line in the past day. Attacks on the village of Kostiantynivka also continue, but the situation remains unchanged. In the Vuhledar direction, the Russians are trying to break through to Velyka Novosilka and continue offensive actions on Vodane. The entire front line is under maximum shelling, but so far the Ukrainian forces have managed to keep their front line unchanged. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians are advancing towards Novodanilivka and Novo-Andriivka. The entire front line remains under constant shelling, but the Ukrainian forces are doing everything possible to prevent the Russians from reaching the settlement of Orikhiv. As a result, the fighting continues for every meter, and there have been no changes to the front line in the past day. In the Kherson direction, only shelling is being recorded. The Russians are not conducting new offensive actions, while the General Staff of the Ukrainian forces has announced new successes in Crimea. The Ukrainian Defense Forces struck an enemy submarine and an S-400 missile system in temporarily occupied Crimea. Confirmed information indicates that yesterday, missile units, in cooperation with the Ukrainian Naval Forces, significantly damaged 4 launchers of the S-400 Triumph air defense system. Additionally, the Russian Black Sea Fleet submarine Rostov-on-Don was successfully hit in the port of Sevastopol. As a result, the submarine sank on the spot. For reference, the B-237 Rostov-on-Don submarine, NATO classification Kilo class, is one of 4 Kilo class submarines capable of using caliber missiles. Rostov-on-Don was commissioned on December 26, 2014. On September 13, 2023, the submarine suffered significant damage due to a Ukrainian missile attack. It was subsequently undergoing repairs and testing in the Sevastopol harbor. The submarine's value is estimated at $300 million. The destruction of Rostov-on-Don once again proves that there is no safe place for the Russian fleet in the Ukrainian territorial waters of the Black Sea. Friends, these are truly significant achievements. Russian ships have already retreated and their submarines are still being put on standby. Therefore, the destruction of these targets will eventually lead to the complete defeat of the Russian fleet. And that's all from me. So please, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.